Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. It is NHL Draft Week, and we are presented by PointsBet. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. But don't forget, with that $50 or more first-time deposit, you also get that free CHGO membership that unlocks all of our awesome web content. You'll get a free t-shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker and all that great stuff. Join PointsBet. Use that code CHGO. Do it. I'm going to try to point like Mario. It's over there.
It's over there.
On the YouTubes. There you go. You see it. You got it. All right, so it's draft week. This is kind of what we've been building to since the Hawks season ended. We've been talking a lot about what's going to happen this week. Will Alex DeBrincat be traded? Will the Hawks get into the first round? If they don't, who are they going to take? Who are they targeting? I thought a good idea today, because we've got that little bit of a lull before the draft, would be to sort of evaluate what pieces the Hawks have. If they do want to trade into the first round or want to add more assets in the draft, what sort of pieces they have and where they might end up going. And before we do that, we should probably update everybody. The Alex DeBrincat news is constantly moving. It's constantly changing. And the latest we have, as far as 25 seconds ago, came from Elliot Friedman this morning on the 32 Thoughts podcast. There was a lot of smoke around the Flyers and the 5th overall pick. But at this point, it seems like that is sort of off the table. They don't want to give up the 5th overall pick for Alex DeBrincat. They're looking for someone who's got a little more long-term contract control, which I found a bit odd because he's got 2 years of control left, and they can obviously just re-sign him long-term once they trade for him. But it seems like that 5th pick is off the table. And for me...
Bye-bye.
Yeah, good. Because for me, the 5th pick isn't enough.
Yep. Sounds like Alex DeBrincat will not be eating cheesesteaks anytime soon. If I'm Kyle Davidson and the Flyers say, I don't want to give up the 5th pick, click,
cool.
Done.
Yeah.
Moving on.
That's it.
I love cheesesteaks, though.
That's it. We're getting cheesesteaks.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, who's got the best one in Philly? That's the question. It's not.
Well, Alex DeBrincat doesn't seem like he'll know that answer.
Not
that
Geno's.
question.
It's not Pat's. Those are the tourist traps.
I've never been to Philly. I have no desire to be.
Jim's Steaks. Oh my God.
All right. Well, I'll trust you, Lawrence. You are our food.
Even in Philadelphia,
You are the skinniest food guru I've ever met in my life.
How long will the DoorDash
jealous.
from Philly take to get here, and where will they leave it?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have confidence.
Yeah, I'm going to assume Pat and Geno's is kind of like the like Giordano's and Lou Malnati's of Chicago pizza. It's where the tourists go.
Yeah.
Don't get the
100%.
authentic
100%. You got to go to. You got to ask someone from Philly. So, I'll say this: the first time I was in Philly, I'm going to pop myself on screen so people know who the hell's talking. Hi. The first time I was in Philly was in 2000. We were on a baseball tour. We weren't going to a Phillies game. They weren't in town. We were going from New York to Baltimore, and we're like, okay, let's stop in Philly. It's on the way. And so we ended up going to a cop on the street, and we're like, hey, where should we get cheesesteaks? This is, kind of pre-internet, really, sort of. And so we ended up going. He's like, go to Pat's or Geno's on 9th and Wharton. And I'm like, okay. So I did the tourist thing then, and it was good. But then I recently worked with someone who was from Philly, and she's like, no, you got to go to Jim's or D'Alessandro's. And so the next time I went to Jim's.
Did they use the Cheese Whiz?
Got to go Whiz Wit, man. Got to go Whiz Wit, yeah.
All right, well, noted for the next time the Hawks and Flyers meet in the Cup final.
Jim's. Hey,
how about we just get cheesesteaks ordered in on Friday during our live draft or Thursday?
That sounds great.
Hawks and Flyers in the Stanley Cup final may never happen again.
Yeah, probably won't happen again.
I do want to eat a cheesesteak before I die.
Yeah, no arguments for me on any sort of food ordered on Friday. I'm down for that.
Narfin26 says the best cheesesteak he had was at the airport terminal in Philadelphia.
I mean, that's interesting.
Okay,
at O'Hare we got Rick Bayless has a spot. I mean, it's not unheard of.
Probably the last thing I would want to eat before getting on an airplane, though.
Yeah, or would you be one of those people who brings it on the airplane and then just smells up the whole cabin?
Oof.
Yeah,
those people are the worst. Stinky food and
Don't
crying
be that
babies.
person.
Leave them at home.
Yeah. Well, the crying babies thing, hey, come on. Sometimes that just has to happen. Parents got to travel
don't do it
too.
on my plane.
Okay. Get off my plane, says Greg. Anyway, back to the Blackhawks draft.
All right, Blackhawks, yeah.
I don't mean to derail all of our tremendous conversations right now, but I did want to speak about Highland Park. I think we were going to plan on addressing that, as seems like we have to every time this happens. Maybe having a pre-recorded statement would be good at this time.
It's our fourth time since we launched in March we've had to do this.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, we will. Sorry, apologize for breaking up the conversation here. We're gonna get into the hockey and Alex DeBrincat and everything. But if you missed the news, I don't know how that would have been possible. But 4th of July parade yesterday in Highland Park was the scene of the latest mass shooting in the United States. Obviously, Highland Park is not Chicago, but close enough. I think we're all pretty have some connections to Highland Park in some way, shape, or form. My wife and I know people who live in Highland Park. I worked in Highland Park for some time, and I don't know what more to say that hasn't been said for decades about these things when they happen, these shootings. And we were talking about it, before the show, and it's just another instance of a reminder that nothing is seemingly safe.
No,
really, you can't really go anywhere without this being a real threat. And I'm trying to pick my words carefully here, but a fucking 4th of July parade with police everywhere,
heavily
and
armed.
What is safety in this country anymore? I don't know what it is.
And how about this? Instead of what is safety, what is freedom? Right? We're worried about protecting the freedoms of people that want to own guns, and for whatever reason, fine. But what about people's freedom to go celebrate the nation's independence and that freedom? They're not free to be there.
No.
They got to sit there in fear. You look at the pictures of strollers and kids' shoes and camp chairs just abandoned on the parade route in Highland Park, and blood running through the streets because we can't. And look, this could be a whole show, and I don't want it to be, but everyone's like, you can't take away my guns. No one is saying that. No one is saying we're coming to confiscate your guns. We're coming around you. No. We just want to make it a little bit more difficult to get one than walking into the damn store and saying, I'll take that AR-15, please. Here you go, son. Enjoy. In a few years, you'll be able to drink a beer. In the meantime, go kill Bambi with a machine gun. What the hell are we doing here? Come on. Liam Hendricks said it perfectly. He's like, I had to come to America and take a driving test, but I can walk into a store and buy a gun.
It's from Australia, for those who don't know. Liam Hendricks.
It's ridiculous. You are buying and people are like, well, car accidents happen. You don't ban cars. That's not their primary function.
Yeah, but you also have to have a license and insurance to drive a car. Maybe we need
the reason
to do
that they were able to identify who the shooter was because of the car that he was registered for and had a license plate.
Right.
Imagine if they could do that for guns being purchased. Imagine what things could be done.
It's just so common sense.
Yeah.
It's so common sense.
At some point, we need to get over the gun fetish in this country.
And guess what? It's what most of the country wants to happen.
Well,
once again, we are kowtowing to the very vocal minority to keep them pleased or whatever. And of course, what it is we need massive campaign reform because you have the NRA funding many, many politicians, and that just should not. It just should. And for both sides, corporations should not be able to fund elections. No. It's not what it should be about. But that'll never change. That's the frustration. I'm sorry, Greg.
Yeah, no.
The frustration is just that nothing will ever change. This will just keep happening, and we'll just get numb to it. And this is just part of life in America. What is more American than a mass shooting on the 4th of July? Nothing.
That's what we are.
That's it. That's what America is. So
it's where we're at. We're living in a society where all assault rifles have more rights than the majority of the citizens living in it. It's frustrating. It's angry. Yes, we're going to get back to talking to hockey. Listen, sorry. I know this is supposed to be sports, But this is shit that keeps on happening and affects all of us. And I'm sorry, yes, sports is supposed to be where you take a break from things. And I don't want to talk about this stuff anymore on a sports broadcast. I really want to talk about hockey to get away from this. I understand that. But we can't ignore it. We can't keep glossing over and saying, oh, well, I'll go watch sports and forget about it. Because you know what? It's only a matter of time before you're watching sports and some maniac with a gun splatters your brains all over Section 310. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's enough is enough. I'm tired of having these conversations. I'm sure in another 2 days we're going to have another one.
Yep, there was another one last night.
It's
2 police officers.
I'm
were
tired
killed
of
in
talking
Philadelphia.
about it. It's time for us to get some change, some real leadership that's actually going to do something about it. And until that happens, we're just going to have to keep talking about this on sports podcasts. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah,
I put it on my Twitter before the show today at Mario_Tirabassi. There is a GoFundMe for the victims and those affected by the Highland Park shooting. If you feel inclined enough, please go and donate there. I don't want to continue to harp on our politicians and legislation and everything about guns, but my heart goes out to those who were affected, who were there, those injured, and to as well to the people who had to step in and help on a day where maybe they didn't expect that.
no.
And I have
What struck me is the stories of the children who have gone through what my daughter calls stranger in the building drills, helping adults execute an escape plan and how to handle a shooter. The children are teaching the adults, oh, this is what we learned in school. We know how to handle this. We've been trained for this. What?
Yeah.
What the hell? Like, take a step back. Nate in the chat says, I'm a gun owner and I want more gun control. Again, you want to have a pistol in your house to protect your family? Cool. You want to go hunt? Awesome. Like, that's fine. But just there should be a waiting period and an application and insurance and all these things. It is so common sense. It is so common sense, and it's what most people want.
I look forward, my final thought, and we'll get to hockey.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing legislation passed on better parade safety. Because we're going to blame, I don't know, too many doors at the parade, something like that.
Too many, just like they got rid of airplane, you had to take your shoes off now on an airplane. Because one time a shoe bomber was on a plane. They immediately adjusted that policy.
Yep.
Immediately, because of one time.
Yep.
And that's what Liam Hendricks said yesterday. There was one mass shooting in Australia. They said, that can't happen again. Buyback program, restrictions, all these sort of things, and it hasn't happened since.
It's an easy solution. We just don't want to do it.
I just don't understand why it's so important to people. Like Nate says, he's a gun owner. I'm sure Nate would be happy to go apply or pay for insurance to keep it. Fine. You can't just have random pissed off teenager walking into a gun shop, and I don't know, I have not seen the news on how he acquired the gun, but just in general, your average angry young man walking into a gun shop and buying a semi-automatic rifle.
Walmart.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You don't have to go to a gun shop.
I even, like, a couple weeks ago, I went to Ace and I needed a knife, like a utility knife. And even buying a knife, I'm like, you have any questions? Like, I can just buy this knife. It's no problem. I'm 44 years old. And I bought a knife, like a hunting knife. I'm like, I can just do that? They're like, yeah, whichever one you want. Bigger, sharper, the better. Like, okay.
Yep.
Anyway. Yeah, I mean, the frustrating thing is, we got home from our 4th of July party last night, and I just looked at my wife and said, I don't even know. It feels so hopeless. Like, nothing will ever change. Like, what's it going to take? Like, what's the number? 100? 150, 200, 500, 1,000 people in a singular event for them to be like, okay, well, yeah, now that was enough. That's the limit of what we're willing to tolerate. There is no limit. because it's all driven by money and greed, and it is what it is. All right. Well, let's digest that a little bit, and we'll get to the hockey here. I want to remind everybody the best way to support CHGO is to download the PointsBet app and use the code CHGO when you sign up. Do that right now, and you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. But remember, that $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which gets you all of our great web content and a free T-shirt from the CHGO locker. So $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, and a free T-shirt from the CHGO locker, all for making a $50 or more first-time deposit at PointsBet. It's your home for live in-play betting, and it's just got even better. If you see an edge in the game you're watching, if your favorite team's primed for a comeback, bet along during the game. It is so fun. It is the best way to wager. More live betting, more live markets, and faster live cash outs. Follow along with your bets the moment they hit and stay in the action all game long. Download the app right now, the PointsBet app, and use that code CHGO. What are you waiting for? It's time to elevate your live betting game. Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling and referral services. All right.
Oh, was that my cue?
No, it's all right.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, do your thing, man.
Yeah, here. We're also brought to you by Athletic Greens and their AG1 product. It's a formula designed to improve your gut health, optimize your immune system, and give you more natural energy. Just 1 scoop of AG1, and you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. And if you have different dietary restrictions with AG1, you're good to go. Whether it's keto, paleo, dairy-free, whatever it is, it'll fit into that diet. Easy to incorporate into your life with no matter how busy you might be. A small once-a-day habit with big benefits. Right now, it is time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just 1 scoop of AG1 in a cup of water every day. That's all you need. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is go to athleticgreens.com/CHGO Blackhawks. That's athleticgreens.com/CHGO Blackhawks to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
All right,
let's get to hockey.
Ready? Let's get to the old puckaroo, shall we? We started the show discussing Elliot Friedman's latest report that the 5th pick for Philly is off the table for Alex DeBrincat. So for me, with this draft in particular, and we've sort of said this all along, it's kind of top 3 or bust for me at this point.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not really interested in, like, at least for DeBrincat, just to be clear. I'm not really interested in 7 or 9 or whatever else. I think in a draft that is not nearly as heavy as next year's in terms of quality, you're not going to get really a franchise-changing player potentially, except for that top 3. You know, Cooley, Wright, and Slafkovsky.
Likely, yeah.
And to me, that's where the conversation for DeBrincat starts and ends. And look, if they don't trade Alex DeBrincat, you still have Alex DeBrincat on your team, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. There's no one sort of poo-pooing that. But I think as we're sort of evaluating the draft pieces, DeBrincat does remain the most valuable. And I'm curious what you guys think. When you heard 5 in Philly, did that even pique your interest a little bit?
A little bit, but it would have to include their top prospects. You're talking about Cam York, Bobby Brink, Morgan Frost. Like those are the top prospects that you have to throw in with the 5th overall pick. If they don't want to give the 5th overall pick, then I'm saying, okay, next year's first round pick from you guys and all 3 of those players. And if they don't want to do that, then fine. Then the deal's off. And yeah, I think when you look at the teams that have been connected outside of the top 5, top 4, Ottawa was mentioned and previously, and I think people had thought maybe Detroit might have been a fit, but I don't see that being the case. But with Ottawa, it would have to be the 7th overall pick, and you're looking at 2 of their 3 top prospects. And I think teams are less likely, less willing to give up some like top proven prospects than maybe they are a first round pick, especially one that high. But I think if you're not getting a pick like that, then you have to go after the prospect system. And if teams aren't willing to do that, then, like you said, the alternative is you keep Alex DeBrincat you sign him to a lengthy extension, and you use him as a rebuilding building block. And for a team that may not have a lot of those, like the Blackhawks, they might not have a lot of those in their in the fold to start the rebuild, depending on what happens with a guy like Patrick Kane. He's a good one to have, and a person who could be a future captain, who can be the face of a franchise, who can do a lot of marketing and still sell you some tickets while you're losing games. It's not a bad alternate.
Yeah, DeBrincat, Philly. It starts with that 5th overall pick, and if they're not interested in moving that, then the conversation pretty much ends for me. Sure, they can do, all those prospects, but you got to get.
How about Eric Lindros, circa 1992? Yeah, throw him in there.
Yeah, maybe, but if there was an automatic cure for concussions that comes
Scott
with
Stevens
it too,
isn't.
Well, yeah.
Scott Stevens 92 is not in the league anymore. So.
Yeah.
This is
Right,
true.
right.
Yeah, this is true. DeBrincat. Yeah, I need that top pick this year or a first-round pick next year. If you can get 3 first-round picks in next year's draft, including maybe one of the top 3 and then 2 others, because you got that Tampa pick, that's pretty good. But you just can't move DeBrincat for the sake of moving DeBrincat, and I don't think that's happening. If the report last week that he turned down 2 first-round picks, including a high one this year, and he's not willing to talk to Philly if they're not including a top 5 pick this year, then I don't get the sense he's trading him just
No,
to
he's
trade
not
him.
going to. He said it.
No.
He's not
And
panicking.
I'm
He's not
okay
forcing
with
anything.
this. And Brandon has a super chat here. The more these rumors go around, less likely I think it happens. I think you need to get in the first any means possible. Murphy, we're going to get into other trade chips. So
Yeah, thank you, Brandon.
Thank you
thank you very much
the
for the super
chat.
chat. Appreciate
and
it.
the donation there. But yeah, I don't know if the Hawks have another guy necessarily to get a first-round pick, but we're going to dive deeper into that. So, I still keep going to New Jersey.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense.
New Jersey seems to be the thing. The number 2 pick, one of their top prospects, and maybe, another lower-tier prospect or another pick in next year's draft or even this year's draft. That seems to maybe get it done a little better. The idea of a Shane Wright and a Logan Cooley or Slafkovsky, depending on who goes first, any one of those 3 guys, and then removing Alex DeBrincat from the fold this year gets your chances of getting one of those top 3 guys next year a whole lot better. So you get one of the top 3 guys this year, one of the top 3 guys next year, possibly even number 1 in Connor Bedard. Yeah, do it.
Well, and I wonder too what without Shane Wright being the slam dunk number 1 pick, I wonder if New Jersey maybe plays their cards and says, "Hey, we might have Montreal go off and get Yuri Slafkovsky, and we might end up with Shane Wright instead of having to pick between Slafkovsky or Cooley, or they go Cooley and we could go, oh, we can get Slafkovsky or Wright." Like it's too wide. I think the first pick being this wide open may lead the Devils to being like, oh, maybe we do hold on to it. We'll see what happens, kind of thing.
Well, on the same token, too, the Devils might say, all right, let's see what happens. We're willing to trade, too, but not if Shane Wright's on the board.
Right.
So if Montreal picks Shane Wright, then the Devils could pick up the phone and talk to Kyle Davidson and say, okay, let's do this.
Here's the
You know what I mean? Like, they might wait to see how the number 1 pick falls. Or maybe they want whoever it might be. Maybe it's Cooley. Maybe it's whatever. Whoever the Devils deem as their most desirable pick. If that's off the board when they pick, maybe they say, okay, well, look, now we can't get Wright or Cooley or whoever, so now we're willing to trade number 2. That's a possibility. That's why you get, 8-10 minutes between picks in the first round, whatever it might
10
be.
in the first, yeah.
You get time to say, okay, well, this just happened. Now let's make a phone call and see if we can execute this trade. And maybe the Hawks say, you know what? Cooley was taken number 1 by Montreal. That's the guy we were targeting. Nah, we're not interested in making the deal anymore. Who knows? There's so many moving parts. It doesn't necessarily have to be done the moment the draft kicks off or before, like the Seth Jones trade happened. Mm-hmm. A lot of things can happen at 1 and 2 and 3. Like this thing is completely up is just completely up for grabs in the first round. I will say Darren Dreger. No, not Darren Dreger. Who does 32 Thoughts?
Elliot Freeman.
But who's his co-host?
Jeff Merrick.
Merrick, thank you. Jeff Merrick thinks that that Wright will go number 1 overall after all.
I think it's still this. I think signs still point to Shane Wright, but just a lot of chatter of potentially not being that way. That surefire is, I don't know. It's interesting, and it makes me wonder if the Devils are kind of waiting to see how things shake out with the first overall pick.
Brandon with another $5 super chat.
Hey,
Congrats on the
Brandon.
lottery win, Brandon.
Thank
Appreciate
you
that, man.
very much,
A weaker class. Does quantity of pick matter for Chicago? More chances to pick? I think so. And as we get into the conversation about some of the draft pieces here, I do think they'll be looking to add multiple picks.
Oh, yeah.
Because, basically, the argument against trading DeBrincat, especially even in the top 3, rather, is like, look, every pick is a question mark. Kirby Dach was number 3, and we still don't know what we have in Kirby Dach.
Right.
DeBrincat's a sure thing. So, yeah, the more lottery tickets you have, right. Brandon, you know better than anybody, the more lottery tickets you buy, the better shot you have at getting a quality player. And, yeah, I think definitely Kyle Davidson is looking to add. He said as much. I want to add future assets, be it prospects or picks. And those assets, look, if he adds 2 second-round picks in next year's draft this year, maybe they want to trade up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they get number 2 overall in the lottery, and they say, well, we'll give you another first to get up to number 1. Okay, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
The more you have to work with, the more possibilities become available for you.
And we were told by Chris Peters when we had him on the show that this draft class, while it's not as top heavy as next year's draft class is looking to be, this year's draft class, there's really a lot of quality players that you can find in those middle rounds.
Yep.
And the Blackhawks have 5 picks as it stands right now in the second and third rounds this year. So it's, they are already kind of stockpiled with some mid-round picks that, hey, I mean, look, Alex DeBrincat was a second-round pick. Like, they could definitely Duncan Keith. They could definitely come into a position where in the second or third round with one of these picks this year, there's a player that is, for whatever reason, passed over and falls out of where they may have, were projected to fall into the rankings. And the Blackhawks at, I think they're 38th and 50th or something like that, or 47th in the second round. They could have a player fall to them at those positions that they weren't expecting. And it just, you get into that position and I think that they are going to. That's where scouting comes into play. Like, you really have to know your stuff. Like, top prospects, like you guys, you could roll the dice and find a really good top prospect in these first few picks. But if you can really hit on your second and your third round picks, like that's where a difference is made.
38 and 57 for the Hawks this year in the second round for the record.
Here's what we got to remember about this draft. There are a lot of guys here that didn't play at all last season.
Mm-hmm.
OHL guys that missed an entire year. This is going to be a draft class that in 5 years there's going to be a lot of guys that people are going to go, how the hell was that guy a 4th round pick?
Too high, too low.
How the heck was that a guy a 5th round pick? This is going to be the draft of gems because there are players from all over the world that missed an entire season of development because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That guys that maybe don't look great, but then in 3 years you're going, holy cow, we got this guy 110th overall, and he just scored 35 goals for us.
Yeah,
or there's going to be guys picked number 1 overall going, what the hell was that? Or late first round.
Yeah, there were players that went from North America to lower level European leagues just to have a season. Yeah. And it's like, how do you balance that out?
Yeah,
when you're scouting them.
This is going to be one of those drafts that is going to be very interesting. People love to do the redrafts. 5 years later, this is going to be one of those that is going to be like, holy cow. So this is where,
that'll be dissected,
as you just said, Mario, scouting. This is where you're like, you got to lean on your scouts. And, I feel much more optimistic having Kyle Davidson leaning on the scouts than he who shall not be named saying, that's my guy. There he is. I love it. I was on my old show over the weekend, Blackhawks Banner. I'll give him a shout out on the hockey writers, Gail and Brooke. They invited me on, and I even have them saying "He who shall not be named." So it's nice, great. It's spreading. Maybe that's our next Blackhawks shirt at the CHGO locker.
I love it.
He who shall not be named.
So, all right, moving on. Alex DeBrincat obviously is the Hawks' top trade piece. Now, a guy that, again, listening to 32 Thoughts by Elliot Friedman this morning, new episode dropped this morning, talked about the Ottawa Senators, and Ottawa needs to move, or they would like to move, I guess is a little more accurate. Matt Murray, the goaltender, who's got 2 years left at $6.25 million, and it might take a first-round pick to do so. But what Friedman said is Ottawa probably wants a quality player back, likely a right defenseman. Well, the Blackhawks have Conor Murphy. And we, Hawks fans, are familiar with having to really swallow that tough pill. Yeah, that's right. By giving up a lot more to get rid of a contract. And it might sound like you can't trade Conor Murphy for a first-round pick and Matt Murray. You might be able to. If they're trying to clear salary and there's no trade partners, number 7 and for Conor Murphy, number 7 and Matt Murray for Conor Murphy and maybe plus something else or some salary consideration, something like that. That's a way into the first round for the Hawks potentially. Maybe unlikely, but Conor Murphy's a really good player with a lot of leadership skills, a very manageable contract that is appealing to a lot of teams, especially ones looking to dump some salary. These are ways, aside from Alex DeBrincat, to get back into the first round. And maybe it's not this specific pick, but a lot of teams. We've talked for weeks about Toronto and Peter Mrazek, and they need to figure out things with Jack Campbell as well. Like, there's a lot of opportunities for the Hawks to say, hey, you're in a tough spot cap-wise. We've got a lot of cap space. We're trying to get into the first round or the early second round. Let's make something happen. And I think even if DeBrincat's not moved, keeping your eye on things like that make a lot of sense. But I do think as we're sort of evaluating trade pieces, Conor Murphy to me is a clear number 2 in terms of value. And I think we have to qualify this by saying Kyle Davidson has said he's not moving anyone with a no movement clause unless they come to him and ask for a trade. So Taves, Kane, and Jones were leaving out of the conversation for now because it's apparent they're not going to get traded by this week, I wouldn't think.
Right. And, yeah, I think if you're looking at players that are established, worth something, and don't have protections on their contract and have a contract, you can't really throw in Dylan Strome or Dominic Kubalik or anything like that. It really does look like Conor Murphy is the most serviceable, worthwhile player that the Blackhawks have that would be available besides Alex DeBrincat. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to a team to try and say, hey, we'll help you out with taking a bad contract off your hands and things like that, and they want something in return, if it is in this situation, taking on Matt Murray at full price, I guess, and the 7th pick, I mean, Conor Murphy seems like, I don't know. I mean, he seems like he'd be more than that if they're not retaining salary, I guess. I don't know. I think that would seem like a little bit much to give up, but I guess this is a Blackhawks team. See, this is my brain thinking, well, I don't really want to give up Conor Murphy because he's good, but this is my Blackhawks brain where I'm like, we're trying to be good. You give up Conor Murphy for Matt Murray in the 7th overall pick, you make your team worse, and you will have a better shot at top 3.
With no Conor Murphy and Matt Murray starting 50 games, that number 1 pick is getting closer and closer.
Yeah, exactly. And the 7th overall pick, you can land a pretty good player at that 7th overall pick for sure.
So Murphy, 4 years left at 4.4, which is an absolute bargain, assuming he's healthy, which is a tough assumption. Right. Should point out he does have a 10-team no-trade list. We don't know who's on that list, but just something to keep in mind. He does have a modified no-movement clause where he can veto trades to 10 locations. But like that
something, but not
never
full protection.
Happens.
Yeah.
So
when you have 22 teams available, you could find someone
if you wanted to. If you really want to get that 7th pick, you could eat some of Murphy's salary too. Because if Ottawa's trying to clear salary, it's only a $2 million difference between Murphy and Murray, which is very confusing. If you want to say, hey, we'll pick up another $1 million or $1.5 million of Murphy's deal to sweeten it for you to get that 7th pick, to me that's very tempting. And you're right, like Conor Murphy's a guy. If you're saying, do you want him or not? The answer is yes, I want him, of course, for many reasons. But for the 7th overall pick, even in a draft not quite as heavy, that 7th pick, whoever it might be, still becomes probably your 2nd best prospect after Lucas Reichel.
Or maybe your best.
Maybe your best.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about Murphy. one team maybe to keep an eye out for. Again, we'll go back to 32 Thoughts. They had a lot of great stuff about the rumors, so check that out.
Really?
But
I love that podcast.
It's a great podcast.
Well, gets my juices flowing every week.
Friedman's the best in the business.
Yeah.
So when he says something, I listen.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about the Ryan Mcdonough trade to Nashville. And that's another thing that confuses me. Why do teams keep trying to help the best teams in the league stay the best teams in the league? Like, total salary dump. But Friedman reported that the Columbus Blue Jackets were one of the teams in on Mcdonough. Mm-hmm. Well, if you can't get Ryan Mcdonough, Conor Murphy is a real nice fit. Conor Murphy is
Mcdonough light.
Conor Murphy, born in Columbus, Ohio, played in Columbus, their AAA program. I don't think, and Columbus has 2 first-round picks, as we know. They got 6 that should have been here, and they got 12th overall. I don't think they're giving up the 12th overall pick for Conor Murphy, unless there's other moving pieces. But the other thing is about Murphy. That Ottawa scenario sounds great if it's a thing. I would definitely listen on that. The other issue with Murphy, he seems more like a trade deadline guy. When teams get desperate, when teams get more willing to give up stuff. When they're like, oh, crap,
we have to do something.
We're third in the conference and we just lost our number 2 defenseman. Now, all of a sudden, that becomes more valuable than at draft day. Mm-hmm. Conor Murphy, to me, after having Luke Richardson here last week and talking to him, Conor Murphy, to me, seems like the perfect Luke Richardson-type player for what he wants to play.
Coach on the ice.
And the veteran leadership this young team is here. So there's a lot of factors. Yes, Murphy is the number 2 trade chip behind Alex DeBrincat. But there's so many outlying factors that go into that. The Toronto thing makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Toronto's got 25 this year.
Murphy and maybe one of those third-round picks from Mrazek in that first pick. I would make that deal. It gets you in the first round, and you get a goalie, that is either going to help you get to the number 1 pick better or could have a bounce. Mrazek, when healthy, is a pretty good goaltender. Yeah. And again, trade deadline, Stanley Cup contender loses their goalie, and if Mrazek has that bounce back year, it's going to be tough to look good on this Blackhawks team. But stranger things have happened. If he can have a good year, maybe that's a guy that you then flip for another 2nd round pick at the trade deadline. Who knows? There's so many moving parts. That's what makes this time of year so much fun to talk about. We have DeBrincat, obviously best trade chip. Murphy too.
Real quick on the Murphy and Toronto thing too, that helps the Leafs a lot. Like, Ottawa's one thing. Ottawa's not Conor Murphy away from a cup. The Leafs might be Conor Murphy away from a cup. To bring in a healthy,
depending on what they do with their goalies.
Yeah, stay at home, shot blocking, leader on the ice. Like, that's like when you look at when the Hawks brought in on the D, like Johnny Oduya. Yeah. Like, they need that one more guy. And up front, they did it with Antoine Vermette. And they did several things like that leading up to Stanley Cups. But the point remains, like, they could see that as, all right, we're a little bit weaker on defense than we'd like to be. We're getting in a few too many track meets. Who can we bring in at a cheap price to really solidify? Conor Murphy checks all those boxes. 4 years left at 4.5. He's 29 years old. That is a perfect time for a team like Toronto to trade for Conor Murphy. Yeah. Well, and it also allows the Hawks to help them with their Mrazek problem, free up some cap space, and then bring in a first-round pick. That, to me, that's a beautiful move. And I'm not looking to, just like DeBrincat, I'm not looking to trade Conor Murphy. But if the opportunity comes to solidify your prospect pool, gain some assets, and frankly get a goalie in here, which is something they don't have. They don't have an NHL goalie signed at this point. They need to get one somehow. Maybe taking on a more expensive one than other teams desire is a way to solve that problem while gaining some assets.
Another thing we got to remember, yes, these are good players. We also got to untrain our brains. Like, it's okay to trade good players to get really bad this year and the next couple of years. That's how rebuilds have success. You have to get high draft picks. And trading a Conor Murphy, I'm a big fan of his. Great guy, great. He's the type of defenseman you want, but for this type of scenario, I'd rather have a top 3 pick next year. And if trading Conor Murphy gets me closer than that, thanks for your service, Conor. We'll see you when you're here on the road. It's
Conor Murphy Heritage Night.
There you go. And then another interesting thing about Toronto, again, from that 32 Thoughts podcast, you're not even going to have to listen to it. We're just going to tell you the whole thing.
Yeah, we got
it. Friedman did mention that, Fleury as a possible going to Toronto this year, and one of the biggest reasons it didn't happen last year at the trade deadline is because Kyle Davidson wanted Matthew Nyes, their second-round pick and one of their top prospects, and Toronto didn't want to give it up.
That would have been nice.
Hey, I love my GM shooting for the moon. Ask big, and if they don't give it to you, you move on. So again, as I ripped Kyle Dubas last year, if you're not willing to trade your future to win right now, what are you even doing in a market like Toronto?
Yep.
So we'll see how that all shakes out.
All right, as we kind of go through the list here of trade pieces, it's very clear 1 and 2, DeBrincat and Murphy. Now we're getting into muddier waters. And as I'm looking through the roster and as I was getting ready for today's show, a name that has been out there kind of sprinkled in here and there, boop, 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 little dabbles. Kirby Dach's name has been out there.
Yeah.
And I'm very hesitant to give up on Kirby Dach at this point. I think bringing a new competent head coach and a new competent coaching staff could do wonders for him.
Yeah.
And when you look at who are we talking about? Kevin Fiala. Mm-hmm. When you look at his timeline, you look at his growth, very kind of a similar trajectory, hopefully, that Kirby Dach could have. Yeah. An 85-point season would be great. But maybe the Hawks say, you know what, this is a kid that just definitely needs a change of scenery. I bet there's a lot of teams out there that still think a lot of Kirby Dach. For me, I'm not doing it unless it's part of a giant trade. But the name's been out there, and if we're talking about the value of the assets, I would put Dach at 3.
I think that I'm in the same boat where I'm not willing at this point to cut bait on Kirby Dach. I for the same reasons, believe a new coaching staff, a new season, getting time to be healthy, I think is something that he's just needed and hasn't really had. I think a change of role would also help too. Not having to be shoehorned into being the next top center would be good for him, both with his skills and with his mindset and everything. I don't see a team unloading a lot for Kirby Dach because his value right now is at the lowest it's been, even with him being 21 and having the rest of his career ahead of him. I think I don't know. I don't really see a team unloading a lot for him. Besides, he's due a contract, so that also plays into it. So yeah, I think you could cut bait on Kirby Dach, get some stuff for him. I don't think you're going to get anything close to what you got for Brandon Hagel or Alex DeBrincat or anything like that.
No.
I think in that position, would I rather see what Kirby Dach can do in another season, 2 seasons under Luke Richardson with a new direction, new voice, new coaches, things like that, or would I rather have like a random 3rd round pick or whatever? Like that to me, that's a net loss for the Blackhawks. I really wouldn't do that.
No, I agree. And we talk about Kirby Dach could be a guy that needs a change of scenery. Well, he's getting one right here.
Yeah,
he's getting his first real NHL coach, hopefully. I mean, I think Luke Richardson is an NHL coach, definitely compared to Jeremy Colleton. So, he's getting a change of scenery here. He's going to get a chance. Start over. Start fresh. That's fine. And listen, you give him a qualifying offer. You bring him back for 2 years. If it doesn't work out, what do you lose? Nothing. You have you lose nothing. There is no real risk of bringing him back. And if he's bad, he's bad. Then it's better than trading him off for a 3rd, 4th round pick, which is probably all you're going to get from him at this point.
Yeah, his value will never be lower than it is right now.
You don't sell low. You trade high.
Right.
You sell high. You don't trade him now. You hope you bring him back and you let him start fresh. You let him get a competent coaching staff that plays a real NHL system. And Luke Richardson is the guy that looks at everybody on his roster and coaches them accordingly. He doesn't try and make everybody fit under the same banner. So that's exactly what Kirby Dach needs. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to see what Luke Richardson does with him. And if he stinks, well, then better than him figuring it out someplace else and regretting that you didn't hold on to him.
I've seen too many flashes from him where you're like, there it is. Mm-hmm. That's what they saw. Like it's not happening often enough. I also think I don't know how to phrase this. Like, with less veteran presence around him, he might jump into a more leadership kind of a role. And I think maybe he just needs someone to take him aside and be like, Kirby, we believe in you. We want you to shoot the puck. You don't have to pass all the time. Feel free to generate some offense on your own. It's like someone just needs to grab him and shake him and tell him, like, it's okay. You don't have to always defer.
Yeah.
And I think when we're kind of projecting out lines for next season, you could really see him and Reichel and another young player together, maybe Philip Kurashev, where he's the veteran and he's the guy who's got the most experience and the most success so far, and he kind of takes that job by the reins and starts to really assert himself as the leader on that line. Because the biggest frustration with Kirby for me has been there's a perfect chance to shoot and he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that's a dude who's in his head.
He's looking to make a play rather than just
Yeah.
putting the
Or
puck at
he's-
the net.
or
Stop
he's
thinking
deferring.
and play. Stop
Just
thinking.
shoot
A hockey
the damn
player
puck.
that thinks is dead in
Yeah.
the water.
Yep.
Just go on your instincts. Just to tackle a couple of quick things from the chat.
Yeah,
here.
there's a bunch in there.
Guys, stop with the Seth Jones trade stuff. It's not
not gonna
happening.
happen.
Just thank you for asking. Not happening.
Nope.
Let's move on. Who was it? Chucko Mucko says, figure out a way to get Bravoski out of Florida. No, thank you. He's going to steal too many games for you as the Blackhawks goalie. Not interested in a goalie that's going to come here and help the Blackhawks win next season.
He's too good.
He's too good. He's too good right now. So not interested.
He'll be
and
back
that
up.
and that contract is too long.
Yeah.
Yes, Florida really wants to get rid of it, but this would be a time where I would love to see the rest of the NHL hang a team out to dry for a bad contract. Stop helping good teams stay good.
Yeah.
I've had enough of it.
There was another thing I wanted to mention in the. Oh yeah, yes. If you've not heard the big news, Jeremy Colleton is your new head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks.
Suck it, Canucks. I love it.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, let's bring a guy that is like a terrible coach and put him in charge of our young prospects. Enjoy losing, Vancouver.
That's from
That's
Norfolk.
great. I
and
love
then,
it.
yeah.
F them.
And
Still
then
hate
Rafi
Vancouver.
says thoughts on Hawks bringing in Colin White. He was he released today or designated? What do they call
Bought
it?
out.
Bought out.
By the Ottawa Senators.
Waiver buyout, something like that, by the Sens.
25-year-old center had 41 points in 71 games in 2018-19, but has not had great seasons since then.
That's a
I
possibility.
don't know. Take a flyer on a guy at a low price, 25-year-old center. Why
We
not?
all know
I
the
mean,
Hawks need centers.
Sure.
Right.
So I wouldn't be.
People
I
need
wouldn't
to play down the middle.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't be upset if they made it, and I won't be mad if they don't.
Yeah.
That's a guy that is a perfect
Take
guy
flyers
to
on
bring
guys.
in at this point of your rebuild. A guy that can play, and if he's bad, he's bad. He helps you get that number one pick, and if he's good, then hey, maybe you got an asset to move for another second or third round pick.
Yep.
Right.
That's what guys. Anybody that's brought in this summer or next summer or even the summer after that is a guy that you have to think is, how can I turn him into something else?
Right. If they're
For the
not
future.
going to be, there's going to be players as free agency starts later next week, there will be players that the Blackhawks bring in that you will not need to invest a lot of time in because they'll be here for maybe 2/3 of the season,
Spot fillers.
and then they'll be traded for a pick or 2 picks or whatever.
Matthias Janmark, Carl
exactly.
Soderberg.
Yep.
Those guys, you're like, oh, okay, well, they might.
If they pan out, great. If they don't,
Yeah.
then we
Hey.
trade them.
Actually, if they pan out, it's even better because then they got more value at the trade
higher
deadline.
value, right.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we got a lot of value for Matthias Janmark.
yeah,
That worked out well.
absolutely. All right, now we're getting into really murky waters in terms of value. I'm on the fence between Jake McCabe and Tyler Johnson in terms of trade value. McCabe has 3 years left at $4 million. He has a 7-team no trade list. 7, not 17. 7-team no trade list. And
All of Canada.
where'd he go? Tyler Johnson, 2 years left at 5. He has a modified no trade clause. Full no trade up to June 15th, 2021. That's gone. And then there's a 20-team trade list he has to submit to the Hawks. So 20 teams
think-
he
And
will
this
allow.
nonsense.
I think Johnson is harder to move without retaining salary because I think teams that are going to be interested in him probably don't want to have him at full price. So that's obviously a hurdle that can be gotten over. But McCabe, man, like I really thought he was going to be a lot better than he was last year.
And he still might be. I mean,
He still might be, right.
He was coming
off a huge injury.
Coming off a knee injury. He's in a new, quote unquote, new place.
He got better as by the end of the season. He was one of their best players. That last month of the season, when there was nothing really to play for, he was never a guy that I questioned his effort.
Right. Yeah.
So,
exactly.
For a guy that I would put even higher value right now than both of those guys would be Dylan Strom's rights.
Yeah,
probably.
I don't think you're going to get much for Tyler Johnson right now. Again, he's another guy coming off a season full of injuries, so maybe that's a guy that a team will look at the trade deadline. If he's proven he's healthy and productive, then maybe that's a team that you can trade at the deadline. If you say, "Hey, we're going to take half their salary,
cut down the term and the
exactly,
and the money,
and we'll retain half of his salary for next season." When you don't care about eating $2.75 million, McCabe, I don't think you can move that deal at this point. Maybe next offseason it becomes a little more if he bounces back and has a more Jake McCabe type season that we saw in Buffalo. He's a guy that's proven he could be a very good defenseman on a bad hockey team.
Yeah.
He had his best seasons in Buffalo.
He's had lots of experience with that. Yeah.
Analytics guys love him. So if he can bounce back, that could be a guy maybe next offseason you look for. But I think Dylan Strom's RFA rights are more valuable than either of those guys right now. We'll see what happens.
I
think the other thing too is you need some defensemen that can play in the NHL to start the year.
Sure.
Yeah.
At least for the next season or two. So
yeah, you get him. You keep McCabe. If Murphy gets traded,
if Murphy or McCabe are gone, fine. If you get rid of both of them, then you're running into the problem where it's just like, well,
it's the Rockford Icks.
Yeah. Or you're signing a free agent that's
one of those guys needs
player.
to stay, and if not both, I would think both are here.
I also have a feeling that both will be on the opening night roster, but
so you'll have McCabe, Murphy, Jones.
You have the ability to move
guys.
one of them. Yeah. But yeah, Strom's RFA rights, I think. I don't know. The Fiala deal, obviously, Kim Fiala is not the player that Dylan Strome is, or flip that around. Dylan Strome is not the player that Kevin Fiala is, but it's still got them a pretty good prospect and a first-round pick. And I don't know. I got to look at Strome's rights. If it's becoming clearer to me that he's not in the plans. There's no extension coming for him. And if that's the case, get something for him. If you can get like a third-round pick for his rights or a second-round pick for his rights or prospect plus, like
you got to get
something.
If he's not part of your plans, you got to get something. You can't let him just go for
Can't just let him walk.
That makes no sense. But
we've
been talking.
But if the market's not there, then you can't force anything.
Well, they killed his value last year. The previous regime killed his
value. In the first part of the season, and no favors.
Jeremy Cullen had no spot on his roster for Dylan Strome. That's what Derek King said that.
Yeah.
That he was there in those meetings in the preseason, and Jeremy Cullen said, I have no place on my team for Dylan Strome.
Once again, have fun, Vancouver.
Who finished the season as their number one center.
Clowniton. Can't stand him. I might need a new graphic for him.
There's only so many names we can't say.
Ugh.
Because then it just gets confusing.
Right. No, we're only going to keep the
Who are we talking about?
We can keep mentioning Colleton's name because it's not his fault he was even here in the first place. It was that guy's fault that he was here in the first place. I blame him for Colleton.
He who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named. We need a dramatic big voice echoey thing.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, we do need that, don't we?
We need big voice guy here to do it.
He who shall not be named.
There you go.
Not big enough.
Jack of all trades.
We need like God from
we need
the Ten
Echo.
Commandments.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's this week is gonna be.
It'll be fun.
It's gonna be one of those where I'm on my phone all week, and my wife will have very important conversations with me, and I'll be like, "Huh? What?" I'm sorry. I'm looking at trade rumors and all sorts of stuff.
I have already told my better half that, this week just don't count on me for anything.
You know what?
Gonna be busy.
Before we wrap up, the Strome thing, it just bugs me because they're gonna end up like at best flipping his rights for a third or fourth round pick, and it's like he's just better than that. Yeah. He's a better player than that, and the league doesn't really seem to believe that. It's funny when you like look up Dylan Strome on Twitter to see if any trade rumors have popped up or whatever.
There's like nothing there.
Well, there's not, but then there's fans in other cities that are like, yeah, we should absolutely get Dylan Strome. There are fans that believe But it just feels like people around hockey are just not sold. And I don't know. Like, yes, he's not the strongest skater. Yes, he has some problems staying engaged. I get that. But, like, he's still like a 60-point guy.
And who knows what he's like on a good team. Yeah, he has trouble staying engaged, but he hasn't exactly played for any great teams yet.
If you're a good team and you have Dylan Strome as like your third-line center, that's pretty good.
Colorado might be losing some guys soon. Maybe Dylan Strome's a guy.
He's also a noted
big Blue Jays fan.
Well,
so if he wants to go to Toronto,
immediately made Maple Leafs Twitter go, well, he's coming to Toronto because the entire world revolves around the Toronto Maple Leafs. But
he lives in Toronto.
Kudos to Dylan for rocking the powder blue Jay jersey. Those are maybe the best jerseys in all of baseball right now. I love them. More powder blue. We need more powder blue in the NHL. We don't have any.
You're right about that.
We need some powder blue.
At least you get some powder blue, throwbacks or something. Or what do they call those? Reverse retro?
The blues retros are the powder blue ones.
Yeah, but they're the blues.
It's more of a Columbia blue.
Get out of here.
It's not. I wouldn't exactly say powder, and it's the blues, and anything the blues do is gross.
That's true.
They
we need
immediately
a team that I actually would like at least buy the T-shirt for. Get some powder blue. The closest thing we have are those Columbus third jerseys, which I love with the cannon.
It's navy and cream and powder blue.
I love those.
Yeah.
Colorado had like a blue grayish kind of a third too for a while.
No, we need some powder blues.
Yeah. All right, let's get on it.
Yeah.
Narfin, before we wrap up, says, I feel like Derek King was throwing shade at Strome when you guys had him on, and when he made the mention about evaluating guys from the team, saying along the lines of guys who can only play with certain guys. I think when you look at the Hawks last year, he was basically saying, like, well, Dylan Strome only puts up numbers when he's with Kane and DeBrincat. Well, join the effing club. That was the entire team. Right. Nobody else on the team could score.
So did Philip Kershaw.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that's a fair evaluation. It just goes to show you how thin they were at forward. Nobody was producing except those three. And yes, of course, he's going to produce more when he's with two of the best players in the league. You can put me out there, I'm going to get 25 points.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's going to happen by osmosis.
If he's not on that line, who's he passing the puck to that's giving him assists?
Exactly.
Nobody.
Yeah, there's just no one on the team. Like, Kubalik had a down year. He wasn't scoring. Kurashev was completely inconsistent. Doc, we've discussed many, many times. Like, there's just no one else.
Wasn't producing.
Yeah.
There was nobody to pass the puck to besides 12 and 88.
Right. So I thought even when King said that, it was a little bit unfair because when you look at the roster, like, my God, who else is going to put the puck in the net? There's nobody. There's nobody. So I think that was a bit of an unfair criticism on Strome. I also think, like, he looks sleepy. He just has kind of like a sleepy vibe to him. But if you ever talk to him, he's incredibly intelligent, incredibly enthusiastic.
He wasn't sleepy at that baseball game.
I worked with a guy at the Score who thought that I had like a disinterested face. Something like resting disinterested face, RDF. And it's like, I can't help the way my face looks. It doesn't mean I don't care. I'm just, that's how I look. I'm sorry. Dylan Strome has that similar kind of like the sleepy eyes, but he's I don't know. We talking to him, he's it comes off totally different than he looks, which is totally unfair. But people look at people that way.
Yeah, people. That's what they see.
Yeah,
they don't.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
99% of the Blackhawk fans don't get the opportunity to talk to a Dylan Strome off the ice. They just see making his sleepy face on the bench after every play.
Could you put the picture back up of the Blue Jays game with Dylan Strome, Lawrence? Now tell me that guy doesn't have energy. That's an F off. Go F yourself.
That right there.
That looks like the most energy he exudes after scoring.
That looks like every dude at a Cubs game in the bleachers, except wearing a Blue Jays jersey. Like,
yes.
That is
not
a
holding
Wrigley
a
Field
stupid
vibe if
cup
I've ever
snake.
seen one.
Most. Yep.
All right, and Nate, real quick, if Davidson thinks he's worth more than a third and still has rights, why not just resign him and then flip him later? I would do that.
The thing is, though, you're not re-signing Strome to a flippable contract because I don't think from his side he's saying, oh, yeah, give me another bridge deal. I think he's like, no, I've proven twice now that I can play in this league and be a serviceable player, and I don't need to do another 2-year, $3 million deal. Like, I'm sure at this point of his career, he's going to say, I want 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is.
Is it $4 million his qualifying offer?
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
I would sign him for 2 years, $4 million.
But does he want 2 years?
I don't think he's.
Yeah,
I don't think he's
true.
going to.
He doesn't want to sign a contract to get traded.
I just don't know. But who's going to give him more than that at this point?
I think he'd take less than that to get 4 years.
Maybe
that's
he
another
takes that
thing,
much to
too.
get traded.
That's
Just get me out of here. And
I think the other thing is maybe there could be more to this. This isn't backed up by really anything other than by my own thoughts. I wonder if the Blackhawks maybe are working with Strome and saying like, hey, like, we can't give you this term, this amount. You can see if other teams are going to give you anything more in free agency, but if they don't, we'll give you this. Like if he goes to unrestricted free agency, doesn't get the deal he wants, and the Blackhawks come back to him and say, hey, here's the deal we offered you the first time, like, or we want to offer you.
that is a risk for the Hawks, right? Because
Sure.
he
Because
can
then
just walk,
he
and then
just
you get
walks
nothing
for free
for him.
if he does get the deal he wants.
But I think,
But there might not be a market out there for him.
yeah, I mean, free
there
agency
wasn't.
starts a week from tomorrow. I think that Dylan Strome's agent probably knows what's out there for him.
I'm sure.
And I think
yeah.
when we see what happens at the draft, we'll know. You know,
Right, yeah.
we'll know what the market was for Dylan Strome. All right, we are a bit over time. Thanks for hanging out with us. We just want to remind everybody about what's happening this week. Tomorrow, Phil Thompson's going to join us in studio. It's going to be a lot of fun. Going to talk to Phil. He's been wanting to come on the show forever. Awesome guy.
I think the wife to-do list is growing and
Yeah.
growing, so he wants to come
And
down to the
if you
studio.
remember, Phil Thompson was the one who incited, that's a bad word because it wasn't Phil's fault, but he's the one that pissed off Rocky Wirtz last year by daring to ask about the sexual assault
Well, he was the guy that went in
case.
second.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
was
it
the
was
one who was like, wait a
follow-up.
minute, you
Yeah.
didn't answer that
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
How about you answer it?
He was
So-
the follow-up.
So
Yeah, Phil's been killing it on the beat.
Phil's
So
a great guy. I'm looking forward to having him here.
we're looking forward to that. Then Thursday, we'll be live at 5:30 for the first round of the draft. We're going to be live during the draft.
The entire first round, we will have it here, regardless if the Blackhawks pick or not. We will
Yes.
get you through all 32 picks of the first round.
And then we're going to have some guests jumping in with us. I know we've already confirmed Joe Brand will be on with us. We're working with the Hawks to get some other people involved. Then Friday, the draft starts at 10 a.m. We're going to be live for rounds 2 and 3. Live during those rounds. Hawks have a bunch of picks there. Then, once the entire draft concludes, we'll be doing a live reaction show Friday night. So you're going to have three long shows in 2 days for us on Thursday and Friday around the draft. Next week is Prospects Camp, and free agency opening. These next 2 weeks are going to be the busiest of the offseason, so make sure you do not miss an episode of the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. The best way to do that, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss a second. We are going to have a ton of guests, a ton of surprises. We're going to hope to hear from some draft picks, some people in the Hawks front office. It's going to be absolute mayhem. You're not going to want to miss a second.
Nobody in Chicago is covering the NHL draft like the three of us are going to. So don't go anywhere. Don't even turn on the NHL Network Thursday night. Come here. We're going to do it better.
We're going to have it covered for you. And just want to give you one final reminder that we are presented by PointsBet. Use that promo code CHGO when you sign up, and you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. We're good, right? We got all of our reads done.
Yes.
Everything is complete. Awesome. Lawrence, thanks for steering the ship
Yeah.
for us today.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for making me
the
hungry.
and the He Who Shall Not Be Named graphic was outstanding.
Sure.
And
Sure.
we will talk to you Wednesday at 11 a.m. with Phil Thompson right here in studio on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.